is the usual suspects. Welcome back to it on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Monday night / evening, depending on your time zone and where you are joining us from. Um, I hope you had a wonderful start to yet another fresh week. Um, Today we do come 30 more than 30 minutes late due to bad internet. Internet was just horrible. I mean, I was struggling to load pages, later on get anything going, and it's not to say that much has changed. But I'm just hoping, against hope, that we won't be interrupted during the course of this particular broadcast. Otherwise, you know. I was torn between not doing it entirely and trying my luck. So I decided to try my luck, and that's how we ended up here. So please indulge with me as we discuss tonight. I will be focusing on Chelsea. What has gone on with Chelsea, or what is wrong with Chelsea at the moment, and this is not to say that there's, it's a whole doom and gloom for Chelsea, but I thought we should sort of look into them and see what's happening. But before we proceed any further, allow me have our audience tested and make sure everything does check out before we can continue with this broadcast. In case I'm unsuccessful, please understand that it is entirely because of the internet it's just been poor, by the way. And for those of you that are regulars on the channel, you will know that that's happened to us a couple of times in the last week or so on this channel. But yeah, so please join us. But for those of you that were part of the weekend conversation, thank you so much. We do not take your love and support for granted. We do appreciate it a great deal. You keep inspiring us to keep going, to keep serving you. And yeah, we will do our best to keep doing the same. Today, like I said, today we will be focusing on Chelsea, who came up out of the weekend with at the end of another defeat. That was a 2-1 defeat against Sunderland. I think none of us would have expected on a given day that Sunderland were going to beat up against Chelsea. Not that it's unusual for a newly promoted side to come and beat up against big boys, but it's one that does not come, too often. So when it does come, it's bound to raise eyebrows, and the performance of Chelsea against Sunderland is one that did raise eyebrows, particularly not because they were not dominant on the ball, but because of the things that they did not do right, particularly defensively. They looked vulnerable to a counter-attack. They looked vulnerable in set-piece plays and things like that. But also, when you sort of magnify into their form recently, and as far as the Premier League is concerned, they've lost 3 games out of the last 5. They do not draw so many games, but yeah, they've won 2. They won against Liverpool and they beat up against Nottingham Forest by 3-0. But they've lost all the other 3, losing to Brighton by 3-1, losing to Man United by 2-1, and losing to Sunderland by 2-1. That in itself implies that they have conceded 8 goals during that run of fixtures. They've conceded 8 goals. They've scored how many? Let me see. 1 times what? 3 is 3, and then the 2, 5, 8. So they've conceded 8 goals. They've scored 8 goals. And when you look at the Premier League standings, of course, they have dropped to 9th place. And again, whereas 9th place, when you look at the measure of the teams above them, doesn't sound too far away. It is too far away for a team like Chelsea, because we are talking about a team who, in the last 10 years, among the only team that have won the Premier League title in the last 10 years. Liverpool have won it twice, Chelsea have won it the other time, and the other times have fallen to Manchester City. So, whereas they've gone through different phases of rebuild and project iteration ever since the club was sold to Bluco from Romano Abramovich, it does not take away the size of Chelsea as a club. It does not take that away. They remain a very big club. Though they are European champions twice in terms of winning the UEFA Champions League. They are the only team to win every UEFA competition, the UEFA Conference League, the UEFA Europa League, which they've won, I think, on 2 different occasions in 2013 and in 2019. They've won the FIFA Club World Cup. They've won the Champions League in 2012 and 2021. So they are that big a team. They have earned the rights of being called a big team, a European giant, by every sort of leap and bound, by every measure, they've earned that right. And yet when you look at the manner in which they've gone about games, it's been really, really questionable. At some point this season, I think during the course, I think either in early October, late September, we were hearing murmurings about the future of Enzo Maresca. And I remember at the time, the reliable Fabrizio Romano came out to quash those rumors to say that, yeah, the Chelsea top brass are not considering any managerial change whatsoever. And true as it can be, I do not think that if they proceed with this kind of trajectory, that we will not have a reversal of that conversation. Again, in football, usually things can go bad so quickly, and we can easily have a change of conversation. For example, who thought at the start of the season that at any one point, what's that? I'm having a screen share. Apologies. Okay. I don't know if it's an earthquake or something, but something doesn't seem right. Something was bubbly about my phone. But anyways, okay. Like I was saying, who thought that at the start of this season, that at one point, you would have Arne Slot being questioned, that you'd have his credentials or his abilities put in question, and yet present day, having lost 5 games out of 6, having lost 4 games on the trot in the UEFA Champions League, in the Premier League, we are having that conversation. Liverpool fans are having that conversation. Of course, the drum rolls are not yet in of Arne Slot out, because we are talking about a manager that won them a Premier League title last season. But there is a small section of fans that is starting to think in that direction. Like I said, when we were discussing Liverpool, I think this morning, because we discussed Liverpool and Manchester United, my question was, and the question, okay, not the question, but what I did mention was that for Liverpool, we've now crossed into crisis zone, because when you lose 1 or 2 fixtures, that's okay. But when you lose 3 consecutive fixtures, we become concerned. When you lose 4 on the spin and you're the defending champion, we become worried. So we are worried. We moved from being concerned, we are now worried, because we're talking about a team who last season lost only 4 games. So, okay, in just a short span of time, we're talking about a Liverpool side who kickstarted the Premier League season with 5 wins out of 5. With 5 wins out of 5. At some point, they were, I think, 5 points ahead of the second place Arsenal team. As we speak, in a space of about a month, Arsenal have gained 12 points more than Liverpool have gained. And of course, we've seen the change of the table, but also we've seen the narrative change about Arne Slot. So to bring it back to the context of Chelsea is that things can change quickly, because if, let's say, and God forbid, if Chelsea lose, let's say, the next game, because the next game is a big London derby, they will be playing away to Tottenham Hotspur. On a given day, it's the kind of game which you look on and say, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea lost. You know, while Chelsea managed to beat Tottenham Hotspur last season, home and away, we know the kind of Tottenham Hotspur that they were. We're talking about the team that finished 17th on the Premier League table. This season, it's a totally different team. They are third on the Premier League table, you know, with about 17 points. They just beat up against Everton by 3-0, you know. Of course, brilliant saves from Vicario in that game. And then, in fact, when you look at the last 5 meetings, Tottenham Hotspurs have beaten up against Chelsea only once. So for 2 consecutive seasons, Chelsea has beaten up against Spurs, home and away. But that notwithstanding, it's not to say it's cast in stone. That kind of trend of results can quickly change. So, starting with this season entirely, if that particular statistic were to change, if they go and lose against Tottenham Hotspurs, we could start to think, maybe something is not right here. Now, of course, the advantage for Chelsea is that after playing that London derby, they'll have a home game against a very, very horrible Wolverhampton Wanderers. They will play away to Burnley. That will be after the international break, before playing at home against Arsenal and a game against Leeds. Now, on paper, out of the next 5 games, you have 2 games against 2 newly promoted sides, and then you have a game against the bottom team that is yet to win a fixture from home this season, you know, in as far as the Premier League is concerned. And then, of course, you have the current table leaders. Whether they will still be table leaders by the time Chelsea meet them is a whole another different story. But also, you have a fixture with the 3rd place team when you're 9th on the league level. You want to rise up. Again, like I said in the preamble to this video, it's not that Chelsea's position should cause any alarms, because, again, they are about 9th on the Premier League table. 9th with a tally of about 14 points. With 14 points, there are only 8 points off the top. To put it in context, look at the example of Manchester United. I think after match day 4, they were as low as either 14th or 15th. By that time, United had lost to Arsenal. They had beaten up against Burnley by 3-2. They had drawn against Fulham by 1-1, and I think they had lost money to, was it Man City, by 3-0. And yet, hi LFC, good to have you back. It's always a pleasure seeing you around. And yet, Man United, I'm sorry, I cannot stay. It's a funny story. What's the funny story? Tell the funny story. When you look at Manchester United, they have turned the tide around. They have won 4 of their last 5. They've lost 1, they've won 4. And suddenly, they've jumped from 14th, 15th to 6th place. So, similarly, Chelsea, all Chelsea need to do is put on a good run of results. And they're very, very capable of doing that. They're very, very capable of doing that, you know. So that's why I say it's not alarming. However, they cannot continue playing the way they play. Particularly, we'll go back to the fixture against Sunderland. You know, statistically, they did many things right. For example, they had more shots on targets. They had as many as 7 compared to Sunderland's 4. They dominated possession to the tune of 68%. Their XG unfortunately was lower than that of Sunderland because they had 0.9 compared to Sunderland is 1.3. When it came to corners, it was 9 to 1. Still, you know, with that, serves, Sunderland had to make so many serves to stay in that game. But again, you could feel it. One, they lack the sharpness in front of goal. Pedro Neto needs to again add more. He needs to add numbers to his game beyond his athleticism. His you know, dribbling here and there that sometimes sees him shine. He needs to add more assists and goals to his name. Then Joao Pedro, I think he takes fewer shots on goal. I think, and on this one, I stand to be corrected. I do feel that I think he would be better off as a 10 than he is a 9. So, in the absence of Cole Palmer, you play him as a 10 to be that sort of revolving door around the final third of the opponent's box. And then, of course, you have your wingers and your target man, who for Chelsea, it was raining at the training, at training, and I'm so unquoted in that. It's okay. You can place your phone somewhere in a safe zone and let the and you know, listen in as you clean yourself up. But you know, it's completely understandable, LFC. You know, so anyways, my point is, like I was saying, when you look at Chelsea, one, at the start of the season, while I predicted them to finish third above Manchester City, and sooner or later I could change my opinion about that, but for now it will stay the same, is that I have reservations about the consistency of their goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez. Two, I thought defensively, even though they managed to bring in Joel Hato, I thought they are still lacking of leadership. Personally, I think their two best defenders are the ones that are absent through injury, and their best defenders are in Levi Colwill and Wesley Fofana. Those two struggle with injuries. Of course, Levi Colwill suffered, I think, an anterior cruciate ligament injury. I do not know what's happened to Wesley Fofana, but those two, in my opinion, talent-wise, are the best centre backs they do have. Present day, you have Trevor Chalobah, Rostin Aderabio, who even at 28 can hardly provide leadership to that backline. You have Bernard Badiashile and Joshua Achepong. Joshua Achepong is still a youngster, you know. So it doesn't help. But when you go to left back, they have one of the best left backs in the Premier League in Marco Correa. You look at right back, Richard James is one of the best there is, away from the danger zone. Indeed, away from the danger zone, LFC. So when you look at like I said, Richard James, one of the best right backs there is in the Premier League. We've seen him play that right back, midfield, and how he goes forward. He's good with the, you know, dead ball situations. He's got a free kick here and there. He does float in a good set piece. He's good. He's brilliant. His undoing usually is also with how inconsistent he is in terms of being available for selection. We know that he struggles with injuries, you know. He's the club captain, but also they have a decent backup in Malo Gusto, you know, in that regard. So they brought in Joel Hato. Joel Hato is equally another youngster. Again, he does not provide the kind of leadership that you would have wanted. Contrary to Chelsea's view, for me, I thought they should have thrown their hat in the ring for Gianluigi Donnarumma. I think it would have helped them. Or they tried to sign Mike Maignan from AC Milan. That was prior to the FIFA Club World Cup, but it was never do or die for them. You know, they felt that he was being overvalued, and yet he only had the year left with his current contract at AC Milan, so they decided to back out of the deal at the moment. Whether they will go back in for him in the future, that remains to be seen, and things like that. So in their pursuit of a goalkeeper, even though it was not a do or die, again signaled that they know that, they need a decent goalkeeper. Their goalkeeper that they sold off, George Petrovic, went to Bournemouth and is doing pretty well. Now, it's not to say that Chelsea should regret that decision and, be there thinking they should have kept him. Not really, because at the end of the day, goalkeepers are not, the goalkeeping position is not the kind of position that you can, swap in and swap out. That if Rachel James is having a bad game, you suddenly throw on Malo Gusto. If Malo Gusto is having a bad spell of games, then Rachel James plays in and things like that. The goalkeeping position, you ought to be sure who your number one is. And for as long as he wasn't going to be number one, then they may as well let him go, and they did just that. So no quarrels whatsoever on that front. But they know that they need an elite goalkeeper, they need an elite defender, one who can stay fit, who can provide leadership. Those two qualities. He needs to have those two qualities. He needs to have those two qualities. Otherwise, Wesley Fofana and Levi Colwill, who are very, very decent defenders, are struggling to stay fit. Benanot Badiashile, can blow hot and cold. Trevor Chalobah can be inconsistent. Same thing happened with the likes of the Axel Disassis. People forget that Chelsea at one point signed Malang Sarr and things like that. They also signed, I think it was Mamadou Sarr in the course of the summer from Strasbourg and sent him back out on loan. So they are lucky. Their midfield, for me, is one of the best midfielders there is in the Premier League. When you look at Moises Caicedo, when you look at Enzo Fernandez, when you look at Romeo Lavia, when you look at Dario Esugo, when you look at Andre Santos, when you look at Cole Palmer, that whole midfield composition is elite. However, at the moment, Cole Palmer is out through injury, or has been out through injury, and he continues to suffer with that growing, issue. And the absence of Liam Delap has not helped their forward options. During the course of the summer, they wanted to let go of Derek George to Fulham. Unfortunately, the paperwork fell through and the move did not materialize. They decided to bring him back. They let go of Nicholas Jackson, who I thought they should have held on to, because while he is not the most elite of strikers, he gave them options, but he was also scoring the goals. Over the last couple of 2 seasons in his Chelsea career, he's averaged a 15-goal involvement in terms of goals and assists. He does miss lots of chances, but those goals can come in handy, once he is giving them to you. It's after you no longer have them to your tally sheet that you realize how significant they are, So then it was unfortunate that Liam Delap suffered a bad hamstring injury that is keeping him out of action for about 3 to 4 months relative, So that forced them to recall Mark Gui from his loan spell where they had sent him to Sunderland. So again, Mark Gui, another striker on Chelsea's books, who is still average. Now, in other words, majority of the forward players they do have would pass for squad players. Same happens to the backline. Majority of those players are squad players, should be squad players for an elite team like Chelsea. We're talking about a Chelsea that has had strikers like Didier Drogba, Diego Costa. Never mind that these ones never worked out, but you are going for the Andrei Shevchenko of this world, that Hernan Crespo, Damian Duff, Fernando Torres. Those are the kinds of strikers who are signed. Romelu Lukaku. Never mind that his second stint with Chelsea never panned out as they would have hoped. Nor did his first, because he ended up on loan to West Bromwich Albion, to Everton, and eventually signed for Everton, where Manchester United picked him up from, and things like that. So, but anyways, The point is that over the years, they've had those elite players, the Michel Ballack, the Florent Malouda, Solomon Kalou, Frank Lampard, John Terry, Carvalho, Tim Cahill. You remember that 2017 title winning a team that had Tim Cahill and John Terry, Marcos Alonso, Victor Moses, Cesc Fabregas, N'Golo Kante, an elite team. Jorginho, I think, Jorginho had arrived. Had he? Because Jorginho arrives during the Mauricio Sarri era. So Jorginho may not have been part of that cohort. But they've always had very elite players. And if you look at that Chelsea side, as good as talented as most of their players are, or many of them are, they should pass for squad players. Jamie Gittens, new to the league. William Estaval, brilliant player, new to the league. So adaptation is going to take a bit of time. Alejandro Garnacho is good player, but he's a squad player. So you look at all that squad-wise, and you think to yourself, what are Chelsea up to? So in terms of their squad, they're not the best of teams that there is. When you scan through and compare them to multiple teams, that's what you will realize. So in this particular case, Pedro played as a 10 behind McQueen, but again, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Then, Tosin Adarabioyo, what kind of defending was that? Against, is it Isido? Was it Isido? No, maybe not. Was it? I think it was Brian Bobby. Brian Bobby, was he the one that held onto that ball for them to concede? Because Tosin Adarabioyo, you're a senior defender, and you have a striker who is holding onto the ball, and practically what he's doing is that he's holding onto that ball, waiting for his teammates to arrive. And you let him just casually shield off that ball without you trying to force him at least out of the box. Then Moises Caicedo and I think Andre Santos just stood by the halfway line, watching things develop, watching the moment develop. As you had these Sunderland players rest off to the other end to provide cover or options for the other forward player, the likes of Talabi. I do not remember who else it was. Moises Caicedo and Andres Santos washed on. Was that a mentality issue? Because, again, we can pick on managers in terms of their team selections, sometimes in terms of how they deploy their teams, how they want them to play, and things like that. We can get nitpicky. But as a manager, I do not think you can coach everything. You can't coach common sense. Some things are basic. Some things are basic or should be basic, should be basic in that sense. I told you in the preview of that game that Sunderland is one of the teams that have a very, very decent defensive record in as far as this season is concerned. Because when you look at their tally sheet, they've scored 11 goals. They do not score too many, but they've also conceded only 7. And there's about 3 teams that have conceded only 7 goals. Of course, Arsenal, keeping the best defensive side there is, having conceded only 3. But again, that can also change. Not that there are signs that it's going to change in the near future, but it is possible that it can change, but so far they've been solid, defensively. And Chelsea are a team that can score goals, can score many goals. In fact, they are one of the 3 teams in the Premier League that have scored 17 goals. The other team is Manchester City, and the other team is Tottenham Hotspurs. Tottenham Hotspurs. So it's not like I said, it's not like it's all doom and gloom for Chelsea. There are positives you can't pick out of this team, but their lack of consistency. And again, they had the same issue last season. There's that lack of consistency. You remember they had a blip that seemed to last for forever before they then picked themselves up to make that run and finish within the top 4. Every time Cole Palmer is absent, they struggle to create chances, they struggle to score many goals, and things like that. But for how long can they ride on the Cole Palmer, momentum? Because if it's not there, even when he's fit, it's going to hurt them. Then if he continues to be in and out of the team through injury, as can be, then what's the plan B for Chelsea? They need to find those reliable players that take matters into their own hands. I think Joao Pedro needs to pull up his stockings. I think Pedro Neto needs to do more. I do not think Garnacho should be a starter. But while I think that, I do not think Jamie Gittens or Willian Estaval have done enough to raise their hands up to say, yeah, I'm the one that deserves to start in that role, So it's a bit of that kind of situation. If you look at it critically. So excuse me. So among the things that I think that are wrong with Chelsea is that sometimes, for starters, the manager does this thing where he gets too smart. So sometimes his overall team selection fails him. That's for sure. Then sometimes you have, of course, they have issues in defense. That's not just typical. Sometimes it's an ongoing issue. Then the attacking forwards are sometimes very inconsistent. I remember speaking about the Ajax game that maybe the result against Ajax shouldn't persuade Chelsea and Chelsea fans to believe to believe that that all is very, very good, because all is not. Meanwhile, as we speak, at halftime, Atletico de Madrid are leading up against Real Betis by 2-0. Simeone and Alex Pena among the goal scorers in that game. So in case you had forgotten, for Monday Night Football, there's that action, but also the Italian Serie A does get underway tomorrow. We also have games in the Carabao Cup, so we'll get to look at that in a bit. But just to wrap it up on Chelsea, is that for me, I feel that's where the major issues are. Particularly the game against Sunderland, they looked vulnerable to the counterattacks, and you could see that one of the goals was a result of the counterattack. Then they looked vulnerable to set pieces and things like that. So on paper, they have very good players, not world-class players, at least not all of them or any of them, but they need to fight harder. They need to pull up their stockings. And remember, because we can no longer say that we can no longer say that Enzo Fernandez is still acclimatizing. We can no longer say Trevor Chalobah is young. We can no longer say that Pedro Neto is young. We can't say that. Those are mature players. Tosin Adarabioyo, 28 years of age. Robert Sanchez is not young. He should be able to provide leadership to that team. So the same way Granit Xhaka is providing leadership to that Sunderland side, But yeah, do let me know what your thoughts are about Chelsea and everything that they are done or they are trying to do, and things in that regard, and things in that regard. But yeah, their recent form, in as far as the Premier League is concerned, is not very promising. It's worrisome. If you lose 3 out of 5, yeah, there's some reason for concern. And like I've highlighted it to you, the next fixtures are not going to be easy. It's going to be some really difficult games. In the next 5, they have 2 London derbies against Tottenham Hotspur and against Arsenal, who maybe for them, the advantage is that they also have 3 fair games that they should be able to win. And if they can get at least 9 points out of 15, we won't be too alarmed. If they can they can get 10, even better in the next 5. But either way, Enzo Maresca needs to find a way to get his team, cracking things up. Anyways, what else? Can Liverpool survive the Leicester City scare? If you remember, back after the 2015-2016 season, when Leicester City had won the Premier League title, in the subsequent season, the 2016-2017 season, we just go on to win the Premier League title. I think with Tottenham Hotspur finishing second. Leicester finished 12th on the Premier League log. Reigning champions for whom it went so bad so quickly. But they were Leicester City, winning the Premier League title in the first place was an outlier, was very unexpected, and yet they did anyway. Katik Reddy says hello. Hi Katik Reddy. Hi Reddy. Why are you joining us from? Good to have you on the Football Tribe YouTube channel. It's a pleasure to have you around. If you do not mind, please consider subscribing to the channel, but also let us know where you're joining us from on this beautiful evening /night. It's 10 minutes past midnight here in Kampala, Uganda. So that means we are already into Tuesday, the 28th of October. I do not know about your time zone, but that's the timing on our side of the aisle. So, yeah, guys, I'm not suggesting that Liverpool are going to end up that way because they are a much better team, a much bigger team than Leicester ever were. But I mean, it's the trajectory of recent results that lead us to, that rabbit hole of even thinking that way. Bro, please send me $100. Unfortunately, I do not have $100 to my name. I do not have $100 to my name, at least not at the moment. I myself would want the $100 to invest them in, some better microphones, but that's not the case at the moment. So please, I can't afford you that, if I'm being honest. In any case, if you're offering it to me, I won't refuse it. But yeah, so anyways, I will leave that at that. But like I said, tomorrow action does get underway in the Carabao Cup, so do not miss out on that. You will have Grimsby Town up against Brentford. Wycombe Wanderers will be up against Fulham. Wrexham will take on Cardiff City, and then much bigger action will be coming our way on Wednesday. That's when you have Arsenal up against Brighton and Hove Albion. In some of those fixtures, let's see those fixtures. Okay. Yes, Arsenal will be up against Brighton. That game will kick off at 10:45 p.m. That will be a quarter to our broadcast. Liverpool will be up against Crystal Palace. Very difficult game there for Liverpool. Swansea will be at home against Manchester City. Should be a winnable fixture for Man City. Wolverhampton Wanderers will entertain Chelsea. Like I said, after facing off with Tottenham Hotspur, Chelsea will be up against Wolverhampton Wanderers. That will be before the international break. So 2 games in the next 2 weeks between these 2 sides. Can they win all of them? Chelsea should be capable of doing that. And then the other game that kicks off at 11 p.m. will be between Newcastle and Tottenham Hotspur for the fourth round of the EFL Cup. Those that advance will qualify for the quarterfinals that will be played next month in November. Then around December we have the semis, and then in Feb we have the finals. Around that, in that sort of run of events, you know. So yeah, do let me know what your thoughts are on who. If you have any predictions out of those fixtures, do not hesitate to put them down in the comment section. But yeah, like I told you, the Italian Serie A will be on. Juventus want to sack Igor Tudor. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. He did say that they are preparing to show him the exit. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I wouldn't be surprised one bit because, yeah, he's not had a good run of form. I thought he struggled. I thought he struggled to get results, and it did not start today or yesterday. It's been ongoing. Brother, I subscribe. You please send me. You please send me $50. Like I told you, I do not have $100. I do not have $50 to my name. Which country are you from? I'm from Kampala, Uganda. Small third world country in the eastern part of Africa. That's where I'm from. I do not know where you're from. Do let me know where you're from. But if I were to guess, you could be from either Pakistan or India, one of those two. If I'm to guess, but yes, you're from India. Good, good. How is India? I miss my friends are from India. People like Peter Parker. You know, there are some of my regulars on this channel. I do not know what's happened to them, but yeah. Good, good. So Juventus want to, according to Fabrizio Romano, Juventus want to appoint Massimo Brambilla as their new interim manager ahead of the upcoming games. Luciano Spalletti and Rafael Palladino among main options being considered by Juventus, as replacements for Igor Tudor. And he did come out to say that Juventus are on the verge of sacking him earlier on today, on the verge of sacking head coach Igor Tudor after recent poor results. The club has decided to change with formal steps to follow on new managers soon. Igor Tudor has also, he added that later that Igor Tudor had been personally informed about Juventus' decision to sack him this morning. Massimo Brambilla will be the interim head coach ahead of club's decision on new manager. So, I mean, they've had a poor run of results, which hasn't helped him, including losing to Como by 2-0. Then they lost to Real Madrid by 1-0. Among another set of poor results for them, which hasn't been pretty. You are from Uganda. Yes, I'm from Uganda. I don't know if you've heard of Uganda before, but yeah, we do have a fair share of a good, a sizable Indian community. If you can Google us, small third world country in the eastern part of Africa. So then over the weekend, they lost to Lazio by 0-0. Again, Lazio is not one of those teams. What's famous about Uganda? Oh, so many things about Uganda. Uganda is the Pearl of Africa. It's also, we have so many national parks, game parks, wild animals, longest river, the source of the longest river, River Nile. That's also from Uganda. So many languages, welcoming people, good English speakers, and yeah, there's a fair share of things that you can say about Uganda. But just to highlight the last time Juventus won a game was on the 14th of September. They beat up against Inter Milan by 4 goals to 3. Ever since then, they drew 4-4 against Dortmund, drew 1-1 against Chievo Verona, they drew 1-1 against Atlanta, they drew 2-2 away to Villarreal, they drew 0-0 against AC Milan, lost to Como by 2-0, lost to Madrid by 1-0, and to Lazio by 1-0. So they've lost 3 consecutive games. They are winless in 8, I think, because the other were draws. You know, you had about 4 consecutive draws. Actually, you had 5 consecutive draws. Yes, 5 consecutive draws. So their next fixtures are tomorrow. They are up against Udinese. Then after that, they'll play Cremonese. They'll play Sporting CP, and then they'll play Torino before the international break. So the next 4 games will help decide. You say, you like girls? You like girls from Uganda? Oh wow. Anyways, yeah, Uganda is blessed with beautiful girls, so it's pretty understandable. Anyways, guys, ready LFC. Thank you so much, and RK Circles, RK. Thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast. It's always a pleasure to see you around. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for being a part of tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for the love and support. Thank you so much for your show of kindness. Let's do this again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. East African time. You say visit 1 or 2 girls. Uganda is a free country. If you get your paperwork, you can always visit anytime. Go check it out. It has a very big, Indian community. I think we have or had Bank of India in Uganda. So they're very good business people and things like that. So yeah, anyways, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Do let me know whether you agree with those thoughts or disagree. Whatever it is, your Instagram ID name, just go to the channel. You'll see all my socials are linked there. Yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, X. Yeah, just go to the channel. All my socials are linked there in. So in case. To our new subscribers, it's a pleasure to have you around. I hope you enjoy your stay. Just go to the channel under the video section, watch all our content under the live broadcast. Plenty of content there because we do this every single day in the morning at 9 a.m. and in the night at 11 p.m. We get to do this. And then, of course, under the short section, we also have a good chunk of content there in. So otherwise, stay blessed and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.